I would hope that U.S. producers are kind of taking advantage of it.
Hi, once again, everybody. Welcome back to the CommStock channel. I'm Marlin Bohling with you. Oh, it's always a treat to visit with you about ag issues. And today I have with me Matthew Kruse, the president of CommStock Investments, who is in Brazil. And it's time for our weekly update on what's going on down south. And Matthew, thanks for joining us. I imagine you have an update for us about crop conditions and what the weather is doing there. So what do you have for us here this week?
Well, weather is still a critical issue right now. And, for the moment, we're kind of seeing some of the same weather pattern that we've been seeing the last week or two, wet to the north and dry to the south part of Brazil. I shared one image here. It kind of shows what the accumulated rainfall has been the last couple weeks or so, and that southernmost state of Rio Grande do Sul has been well below average. You kind of see there where it's gone dry, and while it's probably affected that state the most, it has clipped some of parts of Paraná and Mato Grosso do Sul. Maybe not the entire state, but significant portions of those states as well. And so that's what's been, I think, in part driving this market higher. Obviously, Friday's report recently had a pretty big impact on that as well. But I still don't know that Friday's report is enough to change the overall bear trend. Unfortunately, the trade was or came in 80 million below what the average guesstimate was on the soybean ending stocks, and that's like 2 million metric tons. And so some of these private estimates are calling for 3 to 5 million metric tons more than what the USDA has. And so that 2 million metric tons can be potentially be made up elsewhere, and especially if it starts raining. And so kind of looking ahead on the forecast, I got another image that kind of shows there's maybe drought ending rains on the way in in some of those more parched areas in the southern part of the country.
I believe the premium subscribers to CommStock actually got market alert, didn't they, regarding the developments with South American production and the numbers and the market rally and everything, didn't they?
We cover it in a lot more detail in our premium subscribers that they get. So they're probably aware of this a little bit more than the general public is.
So are you still offering that discounted trial?
$1 for a 1 month trial.
Sweet. So with the big market moves, I'd encourage everybody to check that out. That might be something well worth your time, especially with the big market moves we're having here lately. Let's look forward now to the forecast for the next couple of weeks here, Matthew. What are we looking at here?
Yeah, I mean, I think the market is going to be taking this into consideration here rather quickly, maybe as early as tomorrow, because this is the 2-week forecast, starting today through January 29th, and what it kind of shows. I was playing around with it earlier, is that around the 20th or so, what is that, next Monday, you start to see rainfall really begin to fill in those drier areas. And maybe it's not all at once, but then it kind of builds into next week. And so, it's a futures market. And so any given moment now, I think you're going to see the market begin to take that into consideration. And so some of those darker red areas in the south, I mean, it's in Rio Grande do Sul there, in Paraguay, maybe the Santa Fe region there in Argentina. I mean, those are some of the drier areas. And it looks like you're, in this 2-week window, they're going to be looking at close to 3 inches in a lot of these areas. And that should be enough, I think, to at least temporarily break that drought that's been going on there. And now it's maybe not, happening in all at once, but I think you're going to basically, looks like it's going to come to the end. There's moisture relief on the way here early next week.
I understand you had a chance to kind of get out and about, and you had a chance to also take some crop photos. We'll get to them in a second here. In the meantime, you sent me this map here of Brazil soybean production, and you broke it out by where the majority of it is grown, in what states. So let's take a look at this. Why is it that the majority of it is like right from well, I guess a lot of folks talk about Mato Grosso, but maybe that's not the biggest producer here. What are we looking at, and where
Well,
do we need to really focus?
yeah, I was just trying to put it on a map so people could maybe visualize where all the soybeans are growing across the country. And a couple things you can glean from this is it's really widespread, so it's geographically diverse. It's perhaps a little bit more concentrated in the United States, arguably. But from north to south, you find soybeans almost everywhere in the country. Um, yeah, one thing I'd point out that's those southern regions of Rio Grande do Sul through Paraná and Santa Catarina. I mean, they make up about 1/4 of the soybean production, and you go back to the 70s or 1980, virtually 100% of the soybean production in Brazil was in those bottom 3 states, and so you can see the growth that's taken place. They dropped from 100% down to 25%. But all that growth has been moving north, right? And that's no surprise. It's just in Mato Grosso represents 28% of Brazil's overall soybean production output. And you take in consideration that the whole center west region of Goiás, Mato Grosso do Sul, in Mato Grosso, I mean, that accounts for nearly half of the soybean production in that area. So that's usually why those regions get more attention than others. The state of Minas Gerais, where I'm in, MG, the abbreviation there, it's 5%. So they have good soybean production, but not as large as some of the other states. So that's why I just wanted to kind of show where the shift has been moving north, and it's a trend that you're gonna see continue slowly. You go 10 years from now, Mato Grosso and those areas will represent 30% instead of 28% or 35%. And so the southern states, they're still influential. They're still important. Just they're losing the influence slowly. But the trend is pretty clear there.
What about Paraguay? Do they grow a lot in Paraguay? Is it high production or not?
I mean, they have nice farms there. They represent about 10 million metric tons. And so, year to year, they don't get very big production swings. They can be up or down 1 or 2 million metric tons. It was 2 or 3 years ago, they had a pretty bad drought there, and they probably lost 6 million metric tons. Their crop got decimated, and it's only when they have some big production swings that the market kind of pays more attention to them. But so no, they're not a very big soybean producer, but they're kind of right there next to Paraná, the state of Paraná, kind of in that southern region of Brazil. And so, but what production they have, they're good farms, but they're just not very large.
Now, here is a picture of some soybeans. I assume this is one that you took. Where is this?
Well, this is on our farm, actually, and so I'm probably not much of a photographer, but I took one of the soybeans and one of the corn, and it just kind of show you that most soybean fields look like that right now. They look very good, very uniform, very healthy fields. This was planted in November, and so probably not looking to harvest that until late March, early April, somewhere in there. I got another picture of our first crop corn, and so remember, you got 3 corn crops in Brazil. This is the first one. This was planted in, I think, kind of mid-October, and I think by here in a couple of weeks, February 1st, they'll already be looking to harvest that for silage for the dairy, and so the first crop corn in our area looks great. It's pretty much hasn't had any climate stress at all the entire growing season, and it's pretty much made at this point. Even if it quit raining, it's further enough along. I don't think it would affect yields, but yeah. So it looks very good. I know they've probably looking for close to 200 bushels per acre, which is maybe that's not very impressive in some areas in the U.S., but in Brazil, 200 bushels is pretty good.
So do they do much in the way of irrigation there?
Depending on where you're at, for typical corn and soybean row crop production, not a lot in our area. It's probably, in general statement, the irrigation is reserved a little bit more for your higher value crops like coffee and maybe cotton, things like that. But you are seeing some more irrigation go in places in Mato Grosso, and not that they necessarily need it, but the irrigation allows them to have a third crop in a year, in a calendar year. And so it's kind of the soybeans is the first crop, corn can be the second crop, and they can do that within the rainy season. And in the dry season, if they have irrigation, they can get a third crop of edible beans, and that's kind of the typical rotation. Soybeans, corn, edible beans.
How deep are we into soybean harvest? I've been hearing that in the northern part of the country, they have been doing harvesting already.
Yeah, I think just some of the early seasons or shorter season varieties, 90-day stuff, things like that they've started. But it's 1 or 2%. It's still pretty small, but it's going to begin to ratchet up here. By the end of January, I think most places will be going pretty hard. So I'm actually headed to Mato Grosso right after this call, so I'll have a couple days to look around in central Mato Grosso, and be interesting to see what I find there. So,
oh yeah, that'd be nice to find out for our next report. I appreciate that. What are the people saying after the USDA report came out last Friday with those numbers? The market really rallied after that. Are farmers taking advantage of it down there, or are they willing to wait this thing out for a while?
Depends where you're at. I would hope the U.S. producers are kind of taking advantage of it, maybe cleaning up on old crop sales and looking to target new crop sales. Down here, I think it's provided a temporary boost to the market, but I think as they're nearing harvest, the basis is kind of falling apart here, and which is pretty normal because they have a low percentage of on-farm storage in Brazil. It's like 15% overall in the country, and so you just have this massive supply that all comes in a 60-day period each year, and so the basis plummets. They don't have anywhere to put it. There's huge transportation log jams everywhere, and so it's. But everyone seems to get along with it every year, and little is done to make it better the following year. But I think there's the basis. I don't know that the cash bid has probably improved much here. It's just that the basis has just gotten weaker, to offset the price in Chicago.
So I guess the bottom line is all that fear of dryness, the last couple of weeks in the southern part of Brazil and also down into Argentina. Do you think that amounted to any damage or not?
Oh, I think so. I'm sure it did. It's just the question is still how much, and it's not over yet. I mean, it's still dry and hot there right now this week. But we're just kind of forecasting a slow end to it here starting early next week. And so, like Rio Grande do Sul produces 20 million metric tons. And so if you lose 10%, you're talking 2 million metric tons. Well, it's not a huge amount, but the thing is, I think the market is arguing that, well, you can make that up elsewhere, other parts of the country, they're doing better than average. And so, Argentina is a little bit bigger, producing 50 million metric tons or 52 is what the forecast is. And, so I don't doubt that they'll lose something. Ultimately, if you add up all the good areas and you're looking at 25 million metric tons more this year than last year of soybeans coming from South America. And so is it enough to really move the needle? I think that's the biggest concern. But I think I would say that with what we saw from the USDA report on Friday, it maybe took away the worst case scenario as an option now. I was kind of concerned that if things continue the way they were, that we're going to go down to $9 soybeans. And so maybe it took that off the table. But at the same time, it doesn't mean we're saved and we're going to go back above to $11 or $12 either. And so, but there's still a lot of big soybean crop coming, make no mistake about it. And the Friday report helped, but we still have to face reality here that we have a huge soybean crop coming. You shave off 2 million metric tons in the south, and you 5 million more in the north. It didn't change anything.
And that's kind of a reality check, I guess, for the year. Well, Matthew, I enjoyed talking with you. Thank you for the update. Thanks for the photos. And hopefully you can grab a few when you're in Mato Grosso. I think you said Mato Grosso, where you're going.
Yep. Yeah.
So anyway, we look forward to hearing about that next report. And in the meantime, stay safe out there. That's Matthew Kruse, president of CommStock Investments, with us. And that'll do it for this episode. For our producer, Breanne Jenkins, I'm Marlin Bohling. We'll catch you next time right here on the CommStock channel. Futures trading involves risk. The risk of loss in trading futures and or options is substantial, and each investor and or trader must consider whether this is a suitable investment. Past performance is not indicative of future results.